Holy City Center Radio is episode 261, and I am your host, Christian Sanger. Today is Friday, June 7th, 2024. Let me be the first to welcome you to the weekend, and if I'm not the first, just go with me here. I hope you have a great next couple of days. If you need plans, you know what to do. holycitycenter.com/calendar. The old version of the events calendar that I had for years and years and years is back up and running. It was a fan favorite. I found out quite extensively when we switched gears with the calendar program we were using. And excited to say that the one that people preferred is back in action. And I can't say I blame them. It is a lot better, a lot easier to read and navigate through. So be sure to check that out if you need plans, not just this weekend, but at any point going forward. And there's lots going on right now. We've got, Piccolo Spoleto festivals, some spin-off events that aren't official to those programs or those festivals, but, other businesses try to tie in with their events to, arts and culture and stuff. So there's some of those. And of course, Park Circle Pride is going on. Tons of events happening already and into the weekend. So just a small sampling of what is happening in the Holy City. Outside of that, not much going on over here. I did just record a podcast where I was being interviewed for a different podcast. I'll keep you posted on when that will come out. It's a few weeks away, so I want to talk about it too much, but had a good experience, and I'll be sure to share with you all when that comes out. Just talking a little bit about the history of Holy City Center, where it's going, these new partnerships I have, and just a nice conversation about the site and all its various channels that have grown out of that little tiny blog I started almost 13 years ago now. The Holy City Center anniversary is coming up in August. Yes, I can't believe it. It's going to be 13 years old, and it's feeling like lucky 13 the way things are going. Trying to focus on all the positives instead of, what human nature of not enjoying the moment and milestones and things like that. So looking forward to celebrating 13 years. So enough about me, though. You're not here for that. You're here for the news, and we've got some updates on stories we talked about on recent podcasts, and of course the big news that for, about 20 minutes or so had a few of us a little concerned about what was happening in the harbor, and that's where we're going to start with today's stories. A large cargo ship lost control of its engines and went nearly full throttle through the Charleston harbor on Wednesday, and it prompted the closure of one of the busiest bridges in the state, that, of course, being the Ravenel Bridge. Quite a scary moment for those who maybe got the alert on their phones or were crossing the Ravenel Bridge when it had to be shut down. And obviously, adding to that fright was the fact that a similar situation happened in Baltimore a few months ago. That one, unfortunately, resulted in some tragedies. We avoided that here. So here's the full story as we know it. Some harbor pilots were able to help the nearly 1,000-foot ship, which was going nearly 20 miles per hour in the harbor. And those harbor pilots were able to assist getting it under the Ravenel Bridge safely, making sure it didn't hit any portion of the bridge. And then they were able to help it anchor several miles offshore while the Coast Guard will investigate what happened. So when it became clear that this ship had not only lost its engines and control of it, they were also stuck basically in full throttle, meaning going forward as fast as it can, which obviously added to the danger of what was occurring. Hats off to everybody involved, whoever was on the ship. I don't know the exact details as far as that, alerting the proper folks about what was happening, and then the Charleston police, people at the port, Mount Pleasant police, and any other entity that was involved, just making sure they took care of this, guiding the ship to safety. And more importantly, if something were to go wrong, they had the bridge shut down so no one was driving across it again for 20 minutes, half an hour or so. It wasn't a long shutdown, but they did it very quickly. We got a few more specifics about that response. So police actually cleared traffic, which also included, of course, cyclists and pedestrians, from the bridge before the ship was getting too close to it. And they kept it closed. I guess officially it was completely closed for 10 minutes, but obviously there was the process of blocking it off and making sure no one was on there. And they also had to get those cyclists and pedestrians off the bridge as quickly as they could. Obviously, even if they're running, it's going to take them a little bit of time to get over across. So police officers actually gave rides to people who were either walking or maybe biking across that bridge. They just wanted to get them to safety quickly in case that boat ended up hitting a portion of the bridge. And it only took a handful of minutes to clear it, according to Charleston Police Chief Johnny Wactor. Now, there was some damage that occurred. Thankfully, nothing even remotely close to the tragedy that happened in Baltimore. The only damage was caused by the giant ship's wake. So as this ship is going full throttle, obviously creating big waves, and normally certain sections of the harbor or certain other watercraft are around those big ships, they can slow down as not to cause these big wakes that could cause damage to ships and injure people. But obviously, they couldn't do that in this scenario. So there was actually a small boat that ended up being knocked aground from these wakes, and it caused some minor injuries to two people on that boat. They were transported to the hospital. Again, good news there. They were minor injuries. And that seems to be like the extent of any damage from this whole incident. So, very thankful, of course, that it wasn't a worst case scenario. Now, officials here in Charleston and engineers say that the Ravenel Bridge is designed differently than the Francis Scott Key Bridge in Baltimore, and should be able to withstand a similar strike that happened up in Maryland. But still, they decided to shut down the bridge once it was clear there was a ship out of control that was nearby. And obviously, that's the right move. Just because it should hold up to something doesn't mean you should chance it, especially when people's lives are at stake. So glad they didn't chance it. But for those who are wondering, oh, could something similar happen here? Engineers believe that the bridge could withstand a similar strike. If you don't remember the incident in Baltimore, yes, it was the Francis Scott Key Bridge. It was struck in the early morning hours of March 26th after another cargo type ship lost power. It brought down basically the entire bridge, and in the end resulted in the deaths of 6 construction workers who were just doing their jobs on the bridge that day. So tragedy avoided here in Charleston, thankfully, but still, a handful of minutes there where I was like, oh boy, what's going to happen in this situation? But again, we have a good ending to the story. If there's any significant updates, I'll be sure to let you know. We're getting closer and closer to the election, and as I've said, you're going to see more and more of these attacks and rumors and all sorts of shenanigans. So this one, though, there's a little something to it, and this is, of course, about National Nancy. U.S. Representative Nancy Mace apparently has been using a taxpayer-funded program that allows members of Congress to be reimbursed thousands of dollars for things like food and lodging. Now, that program is designed for that. So that is perfectly normal. It's a newer program, and there are some caveats to what they can and can't write off and things like that. But so that's not the issue. But her opponent, Catherine Templeton, one of her opponents, seen as the one that could possibly challenge her in the GOP primary, said that, that she may be doing that, but she may be doing it more than she should be. And it reinforces what Catherine Templeton says is Nancy Mace's self-serving pattern. And that I can definitely understand based on other stories we've seen about Nancy Mace and just her overall antics and just basically how she comes off in interviews and other stories we've read. So specifically for 2023, Mace was able to recoup nearly $28,000 in lodging expenses to cover costs associated with her living in a $1.6 million Capitol Hill townhouse. She also got reimbursed for $9,400 for food expenses. So this program is widespread, throughout Congress. She's not even close to the only person using this program. Again, it was created for this purpose. But the Washington Post did a story on June 4th that kind of detailed exactly what this program was and how it was being used so far by politicians. They found that more than 300 House members had been taking advantage of the program. However, the issue here is that ethics watchdogs, these groups that look over our politicians doing the right things, especially when it comes to money and stuff like that, they say this program is just ripe for abuse. There's so many opportunities for politicians to cut corners or hide things. So they're a little bit worried about that, especially with how widespread this program is being used. So the program is meant to help ease the financial strain that some lawmakers have who have to have a separate home in D.C., and obviously in whatever district they live in. They spend multiple days every week when they're in session, and perhaps purchasing a home or renting a room is going to be cheaper than, say, staying in a hotel. Not all politicians are wealthy, although Nancy Mace reportedly is. So this is very helpful for the folks who are not independently wealthy. Maybe those that are newer to Congress and haven't had that opportunity to build their profile. And there's different ways they can make money after they've been in Congress for a while. So that's what it's meant to do. And again, because a lot of people have to maintain a separate home or a rental property when they're in DC. Now, that Washington Post report did give some other details about the program that is a little concerning, such as it doesn't require lawmakers to provide any kind of receipt when they make their reimbursement requests, which of course raises questions about this lack of transparency and accountability. It's basically running on the honor code, which is how the Post and Courier kind of put it. Like, oh yeah, I spent X amount on food. Yep, just go ahead and reimburse me. Don't need a receipt, so don't worry about it. Obviously not saying that Nancy Mace is doing that or any other specific politician is. Maybe none are. But when you're not having transparency and accountability, it's going to be very easy for people to take advantage of something like this. So, kind of bringing it back to Mace, of the members who own any kind of DC home and participated in the program, Mace was among those who requested, quote, significantly higher, end quote, reimbursements. That was according to the Post's review of all these pages of house data that they were able to get related to the program. She owns, as I mentioned, or actually co-owns that $1.6 million Capitol Hill townhome that she purchased in 2021 with her then fiance, Patrick Bryant. According to the deed that the Post and Courier apparently was able to get, she owns 28% of that home, and the couple is no longer together, if you're wondering. So you have a person who, obviously she might not be with that person anymore, but together they were able to go in a $1.6 million home, and they're asking for reimbursements. Again, totally okay to do that. They're allowed to. It's not against the rules, but you wonder, like, do you really need this reimbursement? Now, the Washington Post went a little deeper on Mace to see, what other details they could find out. And two of her former staffers, who we have found are no fans of hers through multiple stories over the last year, they said that Representative Mace had actually instructed her staff to seek the maximum reimbursement each day the House was in session, regardless of her actual expenses. And that's where the, hey, maybe there's something more here part comes in. So far, it's like, okay, a wealthy person asking for reimbursements. Okay, like nothing wrong with it, but, do you really need this kind of thing? And then you get that. Hey, we're allowed to request X amount for each day that it's in session. Even if we don't hit that amount, make sure we're requesting it. That's the problem right there. Now, for her part, Mace did deny those allegations. So who knows where the truth is? I tend to believe the former staffers. That should be no surprise to anybody listening, but Mace has denied it. Meanwhile, as I mentioned, Catherine Templeton, who is kind of seen as her main Republican rival as we come up on the June 11th GOP primary, she accused the incumbent of betraying the public's trust and possibly breaking the law based on her extensive reimbursements, which, of course, would be a much bigger deal if that is what happened. I will let Catherine Templeton get the last word here on this story. She said, quote, Nancy Mace is all about Nancy Mace, and she has no problem sacrificing her integrity or our interests to benefit herself, end quote. Update to a story we talked about in the last episode. I mentioned how the Citadel was aiming to host some concerts at their football stadium, Johnson Haygood, which is located downtown. I had mentioned that the city of Charleston zoning board had said, no, you're not zoned for this. Although, yes, you have events at the stadium, such as football games. These concerts wouldn't really be official school business, so it doesn't really fit that area. And the Citadel decided to appeal that decision. So that happened on Tuesday night, which is why I didn't have the update, because I record Wednesday's episode Tuesday afternoon. So the college went before the board on Tuesday night, along with what Live 5 News says was a full house of community members, and the board ultimately ended up voting unanimously to side with the original decision because they were saying this concert series was considered a, quote, expanding use, end quote, of the facility and would need to be reconsidered for a special exception. So the college felt that the series would improve morale and social scenes for cadets and the surrounding community, so they thought this should be a no-brainer. The live events, like I said, would have been held at Johnson Haygood Stadium, which would have made any event there related to concerts being part of what would be the largest venue in downtown Charleston. When you think about the music venues we have, nothing can match that 15,000 seats that the Citadel would have been able to provide. So looks like the concert series is a done deal. However, the city kind of left the door open a little bit, talking about special exceptions. And planners for the city have said like it may be different if the event was a one-off scenario or like a seasonal football game. So football seems to be in the clear, of course. And they also may be talking about bowl games because there was a year, maybe two, where they did host one of those like postseason bowl games, not a specific team versus another team, but it was like one of those all-star type bowls, you know, guys to kind of showcase their skills for scouts and stuff. So maybe something like that would be okay, or if they just had like a concert scheduled instead of a whole series. So the door's still open for stuff to happen, but at least the original plan seems to be dead in the water, and we'll see what happens from there. And a sad story, I'm sure some of you have seen. I just haven't had a chance to talk about it here on the podcast. There's going to be a memorial service in Summerville for a native of that town. You may have heard this actor, Johnny Wactor, was in Los Angeles and was killed in an incident, which I'll get into here in a moment. He was fatally shot and died. He was on General Hospital, you know, daytime soap. He was there in LA, and when this tragedy occurred, and it was all over, just I mean it's senseless anyway, but it's all over that freaking catalytic converter people were trying to steal from his car. So the service itself is set for June 15th from 1 to 2 p.m. at the Summerville Baptist Church, which is at 417 Central Avenue. It will be open to the public. So if you are interested or knew him or knew his family and want to attend, you certainly can. He was just 37 years old. He was leaving a bartending job. So he was an actor, but very much a working actor in the multiple senses of working hard acting, but also apparently having a side job. So he was leaving a bartending job around 3:25 in the morning on May 25th when he encountered three thieves who had raised his car with a floor jack and were in the process of stealing his catalytic converter. One of the thieves shot him without provocation, according to the police, and he died a short time later at a local hospital. If you can't attend, or maybe you don't feel it's your place because you don't even didn't know him until this story, which is like me. Unfortunately, I was not aware of him as I don't watch that show, and that's not in my wheelhouse. There are other ways that you can help out his family. There is a GoFundMe page that was set up. You can see that link in the show notes. They've already raised about $127,000 as of when I was recording this. His brother Grant actually is behind it and said that the money will help the family bring his brother home so he can be buried in Summerville. So they need some help. When people hear actor in General Hospital, they probably assume there's all this money or something. And obviously he had another job, and his family is unable to get him here back to Summerville. So we're not talking about a multi-millionaire actor who's been in all these huge projects and everything. So if you want to help out, you can visit that link in the show notes. That'll do it for this edition of Holy City Center Radio. I hope you have an amazing day and weekend. Again, go to holycitycenter.com/calendar if you need some help finding things to do. Thank you for listening. Thank you to Lindsay Marie Collins with LMC Sound System for producing this in every episode. And also a big thank you to Tyler Boone, who you hear his fantastic music in each and every show. I'm looking forward to the weekend. Not wishing it away, but I am also looking forward to Monday when I'll be back with you on the microphone, letting you know what is going on in Charleston. I can't wait to be back doing that. But until then, have a great weekend. Relax. I'm going to try to do the same. And as always, good night and good luck.